Hello, and welcome to Soothing Pod's Sleep Stories. I am Arif, and today I would like you to be my fellow traveler on our shared journey to faraway lands and times. Tonight, I will tell you the soothing tale of a young prince's journey to rescue his beloved family deep within a beautiful forest. Before we begin, let us take a moment to find tranquility in the space we are in and relax. Settle into the mattress underneath you. Feel the weight of the day leave your body as you sink deeper and deeper into the comfort of the bed. Gently place your hands on your stomach. As you inhale and exhale, focus on the rise and fall of your hands. There is comfort in the consistent rhythm of your breathing. As you inhale, imagine the breath as a warm orange light. As the breath fills your body, take care to feel the warmth as it radiates from your core, all the way down to the very tips of your fingers. Can you feel the muscles in your body lose their tension as you lay here, focused solely on the softness around you? Now that you have found relaxation in the space you are in, let us begin. In a faraway kingdom, tucked against a rocky, mountainous coastline, a king and queen welcomed two twin boys, Nico and Marco. Nico and Marco were raised with love in one of the most beautiful cities in all the land. They spent their days frolicking in the lush garden of the kingdom, playing hide and seek behind pink rose bushes, and making forts in the thick lilac bushes. Almost every morning, their mother would guide them down a winding path of sandgrass and sea lavender to play on the beach. There, they would run through the sand and giggle as the sea mist cascaded against the rocks, casting rainbows in the air. Their mother would help them find glossy sea glass and toss it in a wicker basket for safekeeping. Many days passed like this for the boys. Mornings were spent on the beach, feeling the sand between their toes and breathing in the briny sea breeze. In the afternoons, they would return to their beloved garden, where they would remain until the sun began to set. As they got older, the boys became eager to explore more of the glorious kingdom they called their own. They wanted to journey through the rugged sea caves and cliff sides. Even the mountains were calling to them, begging the boys to discover treasures upon them. There was only one rule for the boys in this beautiful kingdom. They were not to traverse the lost forest at the base of the mountains. The boy's mother spoke of the lost forest with a glint of fear in her eyes. It was a forest of lofty pines and mile-high sequoias, like something out of a fairy tale. The forest was constantly filled with a low, dense fog. The boy's mother warned that anyone entering the forest would go missing, never to emerge from either end of the woods. One day, when the boys were about 10, they waited on the sea cliffs for their mother to take them to the beach. Marco, eager to get to the beach, hurried down without her. Nico, on the other hand, worried that something wasn't right. He returned to the castle to discover his mother had journeyed through the lost forest for business and had yet to return. As the months passed, Marco and Nico found themselves missing their mother more and more. Nico often sat on the beach for hours on end. He'd let the cool water lap over his feet as he stared out into the waves, dreaming of what it would be like to have his mother by his side. Once the boys became teenagers, the hole in their hearts only seemed to deepen. Growing tired of the mystery, Marco decided he would head into the lost forest to find their missing mother. Although Nico warned him not to go, Marco rushed off, unwilling to hear his pleas. Nico sat in the highest tower of the castle, watching with wide eyes as his brother went off into the deep woods. Day and night passed ever so slowly. As stars began to pepper the night sky 2 days after Marco had gone into the woods, Nico knew his brother wasn't coming back without some help. The next morning, as the sun began to paint the landscape a lovely shade of orange, Nico mounted his horse. He began his ride toward the lost forest. The fog hung low and heavy, giving only the slightest glimpses of the mossy ground underneath. Nico slowed his horse to a trot, mesmerized by the magical land around him. Giant mushrooms grew in winding tendrils through the fog before his eyes. Fireflies, aglow and seemingly out of place, danced through the fog, illuminating the mist in giant rolling clouds. A soft rain began to fall from the sky. Raindrops cascaded down the vibrant leaves in slow, sleepy arcs. Nico found his eyes drifting and closed them slightly as the symphony of forest noises soothed him. He heard the rain pitter-pattering against the mushrooms, trees, and leaves, the sparrows overhead singing nature's song, and the ever-so-quiet rustle of mice scampering in the dense underbrush. This place seemed so utterly peaceful. How could anything dangerous happen here? As he continued down the dirt path, a brilliant castle came into view. Tucked up against the edge of the mountain, the castle looked to be thousands of years old. Creeping vines crisscrossed the cracked granite walls and stained glass windows. In one of the windows, he could see his mother and brother gazing longingly back to the kingdom. Nico's heart skipped a beat, and warmth flooded his body as he realized he had finally discovered his family A rumble began to build in the air. Around the castle, a massive whirlwind took form. Hundreds of leaves were swept up in the windstorm, and each spun around in tight, fast circles. Nico pulled his jacket tighter to his skin as the breeze began to blow through the lush forest. Bright red embers rained through the air from a fire up ahead. The glow of the fire beckoned to Nico, calling him to find comfort from the storm, even if only for a moment. He nuzzled into his thick jacket and settled beside the warm flames. Across from him, an elderly woman smiled. Wisdom shone in her eyes as she tended to the fire. "Thank you for joining me," the kind woman chimed. "Thank you for welcoming me to your shelter. My mother and brother are trapped in the castle high up on the hill," Nico told her in a low, gentle whisper. "Do you think this storm will pass soon?" The woman chuckled gently to herself. She poked the fire, sending orange and yellow cinder high into the air. "That all depends on your patience, child. Their patience has determined the end of their journey after all." Nico gazed up to the tall tower. Of course, his brother would lack the patience to wait for a storm to pass. But what of his mother? How did she find herself in the tower? Nico asked. There has been a young princess in the castle for decades, waiting for a kind person to save her. In this case, your mother's kindness and impatience became her downfall. Nico nodded, for he understood. His mother had seen the princess in the castle and been determined to rescue her, no matter the storm, no matter the weather, no matter the danger. Nico couldn't help wanting to rush up the palace steps, but he knew he must wait for the storm to pass. For hours, he watched the fire at his feet dance as the storm continued around the castle. Comfort washed through his body as he curled up beside the flames, knowing he would soon be reunited with his beloved family. The woman began to cook a hot pot of soup. Nico breathed in the hearty aroma of her cooking. He could smell the bounty of the forest in the broth, mushrooms and chestnuts and acorns, all melding together to create the perfect meal. He happily took the soup from the woman and sipped it. Though he felt eager to rescue those in the castle, he knew waiting was all he could do at the moment. Instead of stressing, he chose to lean back and relax. More hours passed as his eyes began to grow heavy. The crickets nestled in the underbrush seemed to be lulling him to sleep with their gentle song. Just as he was about to slip into a deep, wonderful sleep, the drone of the storm died down. The castle was clear of any storm. Nico rose to his feet to thank the woman, but she was gone, leaving nothing but the pot of soup behind. Nico made his way to the castle. The dirt path was overgrown with thick, green vines and tall, soft grass. He climbed the stone staircase, careful to avoid stepping on any of the brilliant lilacs that had grown up over the granite. He took a deep breath as he reached the tall cedar door. He laid his hand against the smooth wood, preparing himself to finally be reunited with his family. The door crept open with a low, echoing creak. In the foyer, the young princess blinked at him with surprise glowing in her vibrant green eyes. "I thought no one would ever come," she said quietly. Nico took her by the hand. "I've come to rescue you and my family." "Where are they?" Nico asked. "They're trapped in the tall tower. A bookcase fell against the door, and I'm not strong enough to move it on my own." The young princess led Nico up through the tower. Each room sparkled with thousands of gems, gold, and lush, velvety furniture. Candles glowed against all the walls as if their flames had been eternal. When they finally reached the top of the tower, there was indeed a bookcase in the way of the door. With the help of the young princess, Nico peeled the heavy bookshelf away from the door. After taking a deep breath, Nico opened the door, revealing a room full of color. The stained glass windows cast a kaleidoscope of hues all over the stone walls, creating one of the most beautiful sights Nico had ever seen. Even more beautiful than the light itself, Nico's family sat in the middle of the floor, admiration shining in their eyes. In an instant, his brother and mother were on their feet, welcoming Nico into a hug. He felt a wave of comfort wash over his body. All the fear he had of losing his family, all the questions he had about their disappearance, everything melted away the moment he felt his mother's arms around him. They all began the long walk back to the kingdom. The young princess joined them, realizing she had been gone for so long that she needed a new home. The queen was eager to raise her as her own, and happy to have another beautiful soul in her kingdom. The town rejoiced as the royal family became whole again. Love seemed to radiate from every home, every business, every park, and every field. The morning after the rescue, Nico walked down the familiar path to the beach. His mother and brother sat in the waves, letting the salty ocean brush over them again and again. Smiles grew on their faces as they watched the egg yolk sunrise ever so slowly over the ocean. Together, they enjoyed the sunrise for a long moment, welcoming its warmth and the promise of a new day. As they began their walk back to the castle, Nico knelt down to pick up a handful of sea glass. The colorful glass was cool to the touch. He handed it to his mother, who smiled brightly at him. I hope the story of the Whirlwinds Castle has lulled you to a peaceful night's sleep. Please join me again tomorrow for another sleep story. Until then, sweet dreams.